Thanks for taking your seats. We really appreciate it. Some of the feedback that we had today was we need more breaks. Raise your hand if you agree with more breaks. 90% of the hands went up. Okay. That's good. That wasn't asked on the feedback form, so that's good that we have that. Remember to please work on completing your homework, the blue sheets. Those are very important. And for those that have rejoined us online, it's slido.com, CIF6, pound CIF6. Good. I'm going to get started so we can start on time and end on time. Are we ready to get started? Thumbs up on that, so good. It's my distinct pleasure and honor to welcome to the stage, is Amy here? She's right over there. She's always prepared. So now watch out. She always does, of all the intros, she does the most research on it, and she really uncovers some really interesting things. So, and I'm sure she's not going to disappoint. So with that, I'd like to welcome to the stage Amy Springsteel from Voya.
Lots of pressure. Thanks, Mark. So please indulge me for the next few seconds as you listen to this. Who remembers that sound? Wow. Okay. Thank you. So we've got an experienced, dare I say, mature audience here. For those who don't recognize that sound, that is the sound of dial-up, when we used to have to dial up to access the internet, and it took a whole 2.5 minutes. Remember how long that was? Seemed like a lifetime compared to today's technology. And in 1979, CompuServe was the first to offer email, and a year later, the first service to offer real-time chat online. And that's near and dear to my heart because I remember sitting in the den in my family's house with my dad, who was an IBMer, so we always had the newest and greatest technology, and he put me in front of the computer with this very black screen and very primitive font, and he said, "Watch this," and he typed "hello," and we waited, and we waited, and we waited. And then all of a sudden, it said hello back. And we were ecstatic. So that's my memory of CompuServe. And our next speaker started early on in his career with CompuServe, so that resonated with me when I did some research. And by the way, when you were waiting for that response, there was no ellipsis, no little 3 dots telling you someone's writing you back. Giving you, so you had to anticipate and you had to wait, and wait, and wait. So our next speaker spent the early part of his career at CompuServe, starting in '82, shortly after the advent of email and chat, and holding various positions there, and ultimately rising to president in 1995. And today he is the executive chairman of the board of directors of Equinix. Equinix connects the world's leading businesses to their customers, employees, and partners. And they reach everywhere with 200 data centers in 52 markets across 5 continents. They interconnect everyone with the most networks, clouds, and IT services in one platform. And they integrate everything by offering tools and services for companies to manage their hybrid environments. Maybe not dial-up, but we'll hear more about that in terms of what they do offer. Prior to becoming executive chairman, Mr. Van Camp served as Equinix's chief executive officer and director from May 2000 and as president from March 2006. He came to Equinix from the internet division of MSCI, formerly known as WorldCom, where he served as president of internet markets and as president of the Americas region. Mr. Van Camp earned his bachelor's degree from Boston College, and he is an avid supporter of scientific innovations in cancer research through Nadia's Gift Foundation, an organization that he founded to honor his first wife's memory, and his service on the board of the Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation. A man from whom we have a lot to learn about technology. Please join me in welcoming Peter Van Camp, Executive Chairman of Equinix.
Wow. Has anybody else been aged like that today? Happy to be here, and Daryl, thanks for the invitation. This is something new to me. I wasn't really close to CECP myself, and it's already been a fantastic day. The Board of Boards conversation with other CEOs this morning was pretty impactful, and I've already earned a lot. And something I'll share, just coincidental, it's your 20th anniversary, and Equinix is enjoying its 20th year of service since being founded in '98. So let me begin, I think, with that. Well, we always begin with this. But let's go back to the beginning. And that beginning started with these two individuals, our founders. And I came out in May of 2000 to join them to build this company. But our founders had been working at a place called the Palo Alto Internet Exchange. And this was a time when the internet was more of a vision, but everybody, it was still blinking hello, but everybody was understanding the magnitude of the opportunity. But what the Palo Alto Internet Exchange was a data center. By today's standards, you might call it a closet, but it was this building where the networks that were emerging, offering TCP/IP services, the connectivity and protocol of the internet, all of them were needing to interconnect with each other. Because one had a user on their network, it had to get to another network. And the internet is an open network architecture that allows all of this to take place. And the vision that these founders had was, this is never going to scale. How are we going to be able to manage the growth in users and bandwidth consumption, all the data that was moving around the world? There would need to be not a Palo Alto Internet Exchange, but there would need to be a platform of data centers where the interconnection from one network to another network would take place. And this was the vision that I came out from the Internet division of MCI WorldCom, UUNet was its name, to help them start and build 20 years ago. And it has been, I'm thankful to this day, a great success that we'll talk about. And it's really been a great run of 20. We look forward to 20 more. But the name itself, it is Equinix. So many times I'm considered a health club. So please, Equinix. But it was the founder's vision. This is the cocktail napkin before a company gets launched. But equality, neutrality, these were key themes because we weren't a networking company. We had data centers where we were neutral to what our customers did. Instead, we were an aggregation point where the networks could come and exchange their traffic. The way I explain our business to my mom is when she's on her provider of Comcast, sends me an email, and I'm getting it on my phone on AT&T, that has to flow through our building to happen because those networks will connect in our data centers. So that was the foundation of what was created and what continues to grow at a very exciting rate, and frankly, I think has a great opportunity before us. So just to give you first a bit of the traditional IR presentation, I'm actually excited to be talking today about something more than that. There are a lot of aspects of the company and what contributes to our success that doesn't show up in that investor relation. So again, Daryl, I just think it's very noble and appropriate what we're trying to accomplish with CECP to get some of these other aspects of success across. But let's look at the business more specifically, again, almost like an IR presentation. But on the left side here, we talk a lot about networks. And as we look at a data center and really value it, It's the density of networks that terminate there that is most important in our mind. And today we've got 1,800 different customers based all over the world who come to Equinix to drop off their users and pick up their users. And that's the nature, again, of what takes place in the building. So interconnection, I'll talk a lot about today. That's really the value of the company. It's we've gone to market and found customers who gain value by being adjacent the other customers that are in the data center. Same thing with content and digital media. Once we had these networks all there, then the destinations that we all go to on the internet saw value by actually locating their computing, locating their information next to the on-ramps of all those networks. So I remember once we had a conversation with engineers from all of our customers, and there's a customer there from eBay, an engineer. And he's sitting next to a guy from Deutsche Telekom. And they're both engineers, and they do trace routes over the internet. And the Deutsche Telekom guy said, my goodness, there's a lot of Germans who actually like to bid and buy on eBay. And before you know it, they were both meeting in an Equinix data center on the East Coast to be able to trade traffic. And it did two things. It reduced cost, just instead of paying to get it coast to coast. And then it also improved performance. Just the instantaneous nature to get immediately onto that network versus bouncing across networks of the internet to get to an end user is why the model was really about re-architecting or just architecting the internet and allowing it to scale. So content and digital media companies continue to be a very important aspect of our customer base. Then we saw the model in the middle of the last decade see a different opportunity for it. Entirely different customer segment, but financial companies. More financial exchange companies. So at this point in time, everybody, the NASDAQ has always been an electronic exchange, right? But the commodities up in Chicago, clearly even the New York Stock Exchange, you could still go down and watch the shout and cry in a pit. But all of this move to electronic exchange was a great opportunity for this business model. And now in the major financial markets around the world, it's Frankfurt, it's London, it's New York, it's Chicago for the commodities, it's Tokyo. We have a significant customer segment that's all about financial exchange. And why do they want to be there? Because each of the exchanges have put their trading platforms, those engines sit there, and the institution initiates a trade to anyone where that particular instrument may exist, and they do it at the speed of light. The connection across the room. It's just a piece of fiber optic cable. But trillions of dollars change hands every day at Equinix. It's a little known aspect of who we are, but it's a very important segment of our business and speaks to the quality and our ownership of just critical customer infrastructure, as you can imagine. So that's been a very successful segment for us. It's 16% of our revenue today, and it continues to grow. And then beginning of this decade, the cloud was emerging. First AWS, and understanding that there's a disruptive wave coming in the way compute happens and the way companies manage their IT platforms. And Amazon developed a very simple formula, and God bless them, they got there faster than anybody. And they're clear leader today. But the reality is, and you see this across our customer base, there are many cloud service providers that are very important to this. But why are the cloud service providers now at Equinix? It's all those networks all the way over on the left side. That's where all their users are coming from. So they're staging their network nodes where they ingest all their usage and being able to then put it onto their workload management and all the servers that actually do the work and respond accordingly. But this company's been built on ecosystems, and the exciting thing about what is an ecosystem, the cloud guys next to the networks, the ecosystem that now is a strong part of our growth are just enterprise companies. We just heard it from Aptiv. He was certainly speaking to applications like Internet of Things. A digital transformation is taking place in the general enterprise, and whether it's insurance companies, manufacturing companies, you name a company who doesn't have now a boardroom conversation about how are they going to transform to a digital paradigm in their business, whether they're aggregating data, analyzing it, selling back to their customers. Whatever aspect of what they need to do, it's moving towards a digital opportunity that is a wonderful ecosystem for Equinix, and the cloud service providers are in our data centers. So the enterprise and the architecture of choice for the cloud is becoming what we refer to, and actually the industry does, the hybrid multi-cloud. And so by that I mean enterprises are still deploying their own compute, but in a much smaller basis, a much smaller scale, because they're thinking cloud first and all the applications they have to run on it. So, but they're also thinking they aren't going to be solely reliant on AWS. It's a multi-cloud answer. So they'll be in the data center to not only connect to AWS, but they will connect to other clouds. It's Google, it's Microsoft, Oracle, IBM. Each of these companies are now cloud service providers, and they're pivoting their companies towards this opportunity, some of them coming from a legacy way of getting things done, and this is very disruptive for them, but it is the most important thing on their list. But now the enterprise could sit at Equinix and have a control point of a hybrid cloud deployment, but not be dependent on just one service provider. Instead, that independence gives them the opportunity to use the right application and right solution. And SaaS providers as well. If you look at a ServiceNow or Salesforce.com, all of these are service providers that make up this opportunity for the enterprise to then deploy and have access from this control point to all their requirements in this digital opportunity. So what's that translated into? It's our global platform. There's been a lot of energy and effort over those 20 years to build this out. And you'll hear a lot about the edge as you start to understand these concepts more and more. We're driving it as far as we can. We're a clear market leader, not just in size and scope of revenues and customers, but in locations around the world. So obviously 52 metros areas, that are the major markets which we serve where compute happens. But here's the most important number on the chart, and that is the number of interconnections. 333,000 connections between customers. And as you can see, there are 9,800 customers. You do the math. Why are they there? They're there to connect to everybody else is there. And that makes it a very sticky and defensible business model, because for them to leave, how do they replicate that sort of architecture? So a very important aspect of it, and the thing we often talk about is not the data center, but we're an interconnection company. And we actually publish a report. It's a report that really measures the value of interconnection. And right now, the statistics about what interconnection inside a data center means shows it growing at 48% on a compound annual basis. The internet itself, if you look at Cisco stats, they publish this every year, it's just a little over half of that. So where are the data flows really happening now? With the cloud right next to the network? You know, or the digital destination right next to the network and the cloud. Some of the cloud is processing for that. So really what's going on inside these buildings is becoming the bigger driver of the growth of the internet. It's inside that internet growth, but this is the highest growing or fastest growing component of it. And it is global. As we look at our customers today, you can see 72% deployed in multiple regions. So these are digital companies who have a global opportunity, and actually 60% is in all three regions of the world, and we're talking about Asia, the Americas, and EMEA in the way we structure our company. But of the revenue we receive, it really demonstrates the global nature of it, and if you were to look at our top 10 customers, frankly, I'd give you 12 choices and you could name the top 10. Because these are leading digital properties, right? But they're service providers, they're networks, they're digital destinations. But of those top 10, on average, they're in 60 different data centers with us. So this speaks to this architecture of the internet. They're deploying all over the world to be able to serve their customers in those regions and aggregate traffic and users and drop them off at their appropriate destinations. So it's a very important aspect of the business model and why we feel it's in a long-term basis, it's very sustainable. And just a last point on this one is that there have been more subsea cables laid or announced or laid in the past 2 years than there have been in the last 20. And this speaks to the rate of change and how much data is going to be moved around the world. These are driven by the major networks, but also the cloud service providers now. And so in that, Equinix has actually won 24 out of 25 of those announced changes. We weren't in a market. But there's a reason why. It's the ecosystem. It's all of those networks that I talked about before being there. When a subsea cable lands, it then needs to disperse all its traffic to its end users. So again, a point about the stickiness of the business model and why it's there. This is just a different view of our growth. 2015, maybe we have some REIT investors in the boat, we converted to a REIT. This is an extremely capital-intensive business to support this kind of growth. We've got $22 billion invested to date, and our public guidance for this year is another $2 billion in data center. Long-term outlook. It's not something we talk a lot about from a guidance perspective. Good convenience with our analyst day just this summer. But this is our opportunity as we've outlined it, and as we see the enterprise opportunity in front of us. This is where really our projections, and we have given guidance for 19 that certainly falls within that. And as a REIT, very important bar on the right side is AFFO per share. Adjusted funds from operations. This is something they look carefully at. And this is the remaining cash to sink back in the business for our growth. And something that absolutely makes a lot of sense in the way we incent and manage now the executive team. Quickly on the operating model, here's that AFFO per share. But the one thing I will point out, and just to keep things moving, is utilities at the top of the list. It's our highest line item we pay for. So imagine, we had a little debate at my table in the director's director, who had the largest carbon footprint? And I'm saying, well, obviously, I do. But sitting beside me is the CEO of UPS. He says, I got a lot of trucks. So we don't need to solve for that today. But utilities is a very important. I'm going to touch on this a little bit more when I talk about sustainability. And we mentioned AFFO per share, and happy to provide these slides to anyone, not to have to go too deep here and get back on track from a time standpoint. But look at our SG&A. That SG&A number is a very significant 19% of our P&L is SG&A. That doesn't look like a REIT at all. It's more than twice a typical REIT. And it's because of the technology nature of what goes on in our data centers. Our go-to-market team has to have the expertise and knowledge to guide a customer as to what their cloud footprint and architecture needs to look at. It's not a real estate agent selling more capacity. Beyond that, just capital prioritization as we think long-term, still very focused on growth. That $2 billion I talked about, we have guided actually or offered an outlook. We'll do that for each of the next 5 years. But this expansion really is building out that platform globally. So all this digital transformation that takes place has a place to go and a place to interconnect to be able to perform. So that breaks that out for you a little bit. And then even from a financial strategy standpoint, what is our capital structure and how do we think about it for the long term? Well, we are after growth and will continue to drive dividend and AFFO share as a REIT will, but any excess cash is put right back into the business. This is not a cash flow story for quite a while, and it'll just continue to be that way. Then we also think a lot about what our capital structure needs to be. Certainly, there's a significant amount of leverage on the balance sheet, and we talk a lot about it. Our goal is to maintain that leverage in the 3 to 4 times range. But to do that, you need to have a very balanced approach to it. So it's a combination of equity and debt that has fueled the growth of this company, and we continue to do that. And I'll say it, I won't confidently predict it yet, but we're this close to investment grade. And so we've been working hard with the Moody's and S&Ps of the world to have them fully understand the opportunity in front of us and how this business model works. And I think we're that close to seeing us be an investment grade company. What that'll immediately do is create a lot of value for shareholders, because the cost of our capital will come down significantly, and if you just apply a reasonable model or multiple or our multiple on our value, it's meaningful money. But also, it gives us access to capital in more challenging times. So we'll always be secure and insulated from some of those challenges. So something important we hope to accomplish. So let me go from there, and again, I'm pleased to be able to talk about some other things today. And I'm going to talk about the culture of the company and then sustainability and ESG as a follow-on, because frankly, this culture is the foundation of where sustainability has arisen from. It's just who we are. And that culture, quick shot, just a recent recognition event, but we call this culture the magic of Equinix, as it's been there since the founders really created the company, and something we've supported in a big way, to the point that even we began documenting it. And this was an external author who sat in on one of the executive sessions, and it was her good work that characterized it in this way, but it's a 2-page laminated card that covers really what we're talking about with the magic of Equinix. And in there is our purpose. Frankly, we talk a lot about the higher purpose we have. As you think about that global platform, we really feel that we are creating the platform for the digital world, the digital economy. You know, the roads in major cities on this global economy are Equinix data centers. And so that's a very important thing we have to understand, be accountable for, and responsible for our customers in that regard. And so when we talk about our culture, we really think that's the extraordinary opportunity to build this digital platform and play this role in the future of what the digital world will be, and that attracts extraordinary people, making it an extraordinary place. The backside, these are our values as we've communicated them and defined them. We actually, there was a great line from Daryl this morning. He said you have to report, record, and reward. These are the values with which we do that. And everyone in the company has a right to nominate somebody for what is called a magical mention. And every quarter, we will recognize somebody around the globe as being a recipient of this acknowledgement from the rest of the team. And my favorites here are put we before me, or be an energy supplier. These are the things that people are acknowledged and recognized for, and then we choose somebody from around the globe who has gotten particular recognition and worthy of it, and then we give them a week to work anywhere in the world that Equinix sits. So they'll go to our office in Singapore, or they'll go to our office in Dubai, or maybe go to corporate headquarters if they're from one of those places. But this is the way we acknowledge and support this culture. But it's been so valuable to now creating a foundation for when we talk about many issues that are more of a social nature or more of an economy nature, environmental nature. But here's our new CEO. By the way, we just put a new CEO in place in October of last year. But this was his first message to the team in terms of how he takes inclusion to heart. And his message is, everyone on this team needs to feel I'm safe, I belong, I matter. That's about trust in your leadership. That's about freedom to speak your mind. It's about feeling a part of something bigger and feeling like you are contributing to it. All of those things are something we preach regularly in our ongoing contact with the team. So that kind of foundation creates results. And this is the line I was taking from you. Just if you measure it, then you will understand and be able to improve. And so those are employee satisfaction numbers. These are turnover numbers. The anomaly here in 16 was a acquisition where the business thing to do was to absorb that. But overall, these are numbers that we feel are good. But as Paul Newman says, we could do better. And then just a recent one, because we're global, because we're growing so fast, we've had McKinsey helping us with our organizational alignment, ensuring that we're effective on a global business. And so organizational health scores, 70% response rate to a McKinsey survey put us in the top quartile. We could do better. But still, that's a healthy statement about the team's view of their role around these various elements that were measured. Sustainability, getting there. Here's our materiality assessment, just recently completed. But you can see the three components of ESG in the upper right as we surveyed Equinix and as we surveyed primary stakeholders, customers, analysts, investors. Renewable energy is at the top of that list. I'm going to keep moving. Renewable energy is something that we've made a pledge to and have been on a mission for years now. Our pledge is 100% of the power we consume, we will refresh to the grid on a renewable basis. Unfortunately, all the solutions, you can't put a wind farm over in Newark next to all our data centers, right? But we do have wind farms, and we do have various ways with which we will refresh the grid, but it's a commitment. We're at 90% right now in terms of what's there, and that's been an important cause. But back to this culture. All of the people of this company care about who we are, and I often say, we hire on human qualities every bit as much as intellect and resume and those things. In fact, we will use that document of the magic of Equinix in an interview and just to get a reaction. And so it is a very important aspect of who we are and how we're building the company. So what's important to attracting and retaining a group of folks like that? It's absolutely ESG. Certainly the E&S portion are something they live every day. And so we spend a great deal of time on the renewable energy issue, as I've spoken, great deal of investment. One quick one here, because I'm so proud of it. I'm not even an engineer, but this is our data center in Amsterdam. And the approach we've applied to power efficiency in Amsterdam is one of relying on the aquifer. Amsterdam's reclaimed land from the sea, right? Right below that building is some very cold water. And so we use that water to be the cooling aspect of it. What's a data center have to do beyond just powering all the servers in it? You've got to keep the ambient temperature right for it all to operate. And so we use the cold water to supply the cooling system with what it needs to keep the building cool. And then we've reversed the water out of the building. There's a university right across the street. And we send it over there, and it heats all of their classrooms in the winter. So you can't get more efficient in that aspect of what we're doing. So a number of stats there. Certainly the EPA Green Power Leadership recognition, and we have had others. Even Greenpeace takes a favorable view of Equinix for the work we've done here. But it's not just environment. It's also the social aspects of the team and what we do. And it's a very involved, active aspect. Certainly, we could invest more, or we could put actual more philanthropic dollars in. And we've been tracking the benchmark from here. But we get them involved. And so these are employees all over the world doing events that are important to them. So in London, we had our UK team sleep out overnight in a parking lot just to bring attention to the homeless and raise money for that kind of an effort. 30% of our U.S. Workforce are veterans. So we do a lot of work 4 veteran organizations. The Boulder Crest Foundation is one in particular that helps veterans returning. And each of these are ways in which the team engages and goes home, and the community involvement is local. And so Equinix Impact Month, every October, we do these events. And we had 100 events around the world over the course of the month, and 1,000 different volunteers participate in these. And I'm getting the hook soon because you guys are very serious about such. One more I will mention really quick is the Equinix Women's Leadership Network. An organic effort again. But some of the women at Equinix wanted to improve their career path, wanted to help each other, and now this is a very active, and it's been around for a number of years now, effort to benefit women's development and benefit women's leadership within the company. So it's been a very important aspect of who we are when we think about gender diversity. And then the last on governance, I'll just hit a couple points quick. This is one of our board meetings. It's just a picture for what anyone would look like. But the level of transparency is the biggest takeaway for all of you today. Every board member has direct relationships with the executive team and certainly below the CEO. And it's very common for interaction in that sense. And in some ways, I'm in the hallways. Executive chairman, I think that means active chairman. So very much involved in the day-to-day of the business, strategy, acquisitions, things of that nature. But it's not often that the chairman is actually in the hallways, understands the business, and how does it work? It's because of trust. Our CEO, Charles Myers, can walk by my office, I could have 2 of his team members in it, and we're talking about something, he doesn't even look. He knows he would never be surprised, and he knows that my job is making him as successful as he can be. And so just a step from the board itself as we keep going, I just thought it might be interesting to share with you just an outline of the CEO review process and what we hold them, now Charles, accountable to. So these are the goals and measures and things we focus on, but you will see impact on society in here. You will see social responsibility and culture as being key elements of how he is measured. And the way this review gets done, I actually sit with every one of his direct reports and directly get their feedback, a 360 review, and then with everyone for the board. There's no place to hide. And so, this leadership team is certainly measured on who it is culturally and what sort of leadership. A culture is a reflection of the leadership team, right? And so, in fact, some of the work we do, Pat Lencioni of the Table Group, that's his firm, we use them regularly. And Pat himself is the lead on this. He wrote 5 Dysfunction of the Team, if you don't recognize the name. But we are very focused in building loyalty and trust in this leadership team. And it's an ongoing program where we're checking it up on a regular basis to ensure that that depth of relationship exists across the team. Again, back to transparency. So I'm going to stop. I could go on for a while, as you could tell.
That's great stuff. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I also want to remind folks that all of this is not only being live streamed, but if you didn't get a chance to go into a slide in depth, it's all online at cecp.co/SII. So we have that. So with that, we have time for a question. How will blockchain and decentralized systems change your business?
Actually, that's not surprising to say, it's a big opportunity. In fact, a number of our financial customers have already deployed blockchain with us, just to be able to leverage it as a technology. So blockchain, if you don't know, it is a peer-to-peer ledger implementation of servers in a distributed fashion so that you've always got a constant update of record, but having a localized input of a transaction to it. And so it's a very secure, reliable way to manage what has historically been just a centralized, difficult database. And so numerous cloud service providers, folks that I won't mention name, but they have deployed their blockchain at Equinix because of that distributed nature. So you're able to serve it from Asia, you're able to serve it from Europe, and you're able to serve it from obviously New York if it's a financial.
Time for one more question. Over here.
Hi, Chris Peterson from EY, and I applaud your diversity, inclusive goals and programs, and with Charles coming in, focusing on D&I, wondering if you're also looking at D&I at the board level.
Yes, we do have one female board member. Did you check that out, or?
She wasn't in the picture. You should put her in there.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But
yeah.
But also
Brian?
diversity beyond just one woman.
Yes.
thing.
Actually, we're about to launch a new search. If you look at our board, it's constructed of experience and expertise in given areas that are meaningful to us. Fellow Scott Krenz used to be the CEO, now he's chairman of Juniper Networks. Obviously, networking is a very important aspect of this model. We've got a guy named Bud Lyons, who is from Prologis, and the REIT aspect and real estate aspect of the business, very important. You go down the list, we have it. Our last board ad was a search. We've started to do more and more of our go-to-market in channels. So, and starting to get more software-oriented as we live in this cloud world. So we needed a software and a go-to-market expert to be able to offer governance and guidance around this. 20% of our business now is actually sold through channels, which is an exciting new vein of growth for us. But it took 1.5 years to find her. And so what we do have another need for right now is someone even more software-oriented, more cloud-focused in their day-to-day. So my guidance in the search was, let's go down a level. I don't want a CEO, because I know they're already fully boarded. I need somebody who lives in this every day who can give us guidance at a board level for where it goes. And so we've just dropped that. I don't know why it was there in the first place, but you're always saying former CEO, accomplished board member. Yeah, that's the pool you're looking at. There weren't enough women in the pool. So in fact, our CMO, Sarah Bach is her name, she's on the board of Splunk. And so she normally would never have been considered without now the energy being applied in board searches. I understand from the Splunk chairman, they love her. And I'm not surprised. She's a brilliant woman and just a great contributor all around. But I mean, that's what we have to do. We have to look differently to be able to solve this. So we're taking it down a level in the qualification stack to be able to find the right women for our board.
With that, let's thank Peter for an excellent presentation. Now,